Rod Blagojevich sentenced to 14 years in prison today. That is him in that car with Patty. He was released today. He will surrender in February to start his 14-year sentence, and many speculate he'll likely serve 12 solid years. The federal government charges you and convicts you, sends you to jail, usually serve about 85%. So this is Rod Blagojevich going home today. He'll get to spend the holidays with his family, but come February, despite appeals, he will go to jail, right? I mean, can he push that back even further?
No. Once the judge sets a date, the only higher power that can change that would be the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals. The Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals, they could petition for an appellate bond, but if you remember with Governor Ryan, he petitioned for an appellate bond with former Governor Thompson as his attorney. It was denied. And they very, very, very rarely grant these type of appellate bonds. He's going to have to report to prison. I doubt it very, very seriously that it's going to be stayed.
And we don't know what prison he'll go to just yet. That's something that the Bureau of Prisons will determine shortly, I would imagine. But he can weigh in.
Yeah, the Federal Bureau of Prisons takes a person's sentence, their criminal background, then look at the flight risk, etc., and they categorize them as to where they're going to be placed and what sort of security they're going to be placed in. He probably is going to be in a medium security. He is going to be in the prison-type facility, not with just dorm rooms where you report in and report out. He's going to be in a higher security area just because of the virtue of it. He has a higher sentence. He has every reason to flee.
We've heard a lot of reaction today. Jurors from the first trial, jurors from the second trial. Judy Bartopinka has talked, but one group we haven't heard from is the state, the federal government. We haven't heard lawyers come down. Mr. Fitzgerald has not talked about what was decided today in court. What will the reaction be, you think, of prosecutors? I know they were asking for 15 to 20 years. They came pretty darn close here at 14 years.
They did. They came very close. I believe that this is, for the government, I believe that this is a victory. The conviction was a victory. Yeah. The sentence itself does send a message, and I think you will probably hear United States Attorney Fitzgerald state that this is a deterrent value, and it's a message to other people that would do this sort of thing. If you remember the initial press conference, he was very, very, very upset at what Mr. Blagojevich was attempting to do. The conspiracy to sell that Senate seat, the undermining or erosion of our trust in government, was the linchpin of why they acted so quickly.
And initially, remember, he was sort of criticized for that. After the first trial, when there was a mistrial on so many of those charges, there were people who questioned whether or not they should have allowed the crime to take place in order to at least have a smoking gun.
But if you allow the crime to take place, and you allow Mr. Blagojevich to appoint someone to the Senate position, how do you unappoint the person? I mean, do you impeach them based on, do you have another trial that could corrupt or somehow supersede the criminal indictment on Mr. Blagojevich and damage your chances of getting a conviction? Because you saw how long it took to get the criminal case to trial. If you were going, and you're going to allow a person who is under that cloud, under that specter, to enter into the august chamber of the United States Senate and serve as a U.S. Senator and have the powers of a U.S. Senator in order to do that, would you really want that to happen? And that's what people need to ask themselves. Do you want your government to operate in that way and have that taint to it the entire time? You've got 99 presumably honest people and one person that is not.
Well, they have to feel very relieved at this point, at least after the convictions in the second trial, because that was, they were clearly called at that point. Right. So this is sort of a victory lap for them, I suppose.
Rod Blagojevich made a brief statement in the Dirksen Federal Building. You're watching live from Sky 5 following him heading home. Rudyard Kipling, he's quoted this, and I had to Google it to see, because it's a lengthy poem, but he took just a phrase. This is how he started addressing the media. If you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two imposters just the same. Judy Bartopinka sat here next to us, shook her head.
Rolled her eyes as soon as Rudyard Kipling came out of his mouth. Because he is known to be, quote, anyone.
And then you felt the same way, that it was just the Rod Blagojevich we knew, not the one we heard in court today. It was the Rod Blagojevich that a lot of folks knew.
Right. Rod Blagojevich is not a stupid person. Remember, he did get himself elected. He was a former state prosecutor. He was a former state representative. He was a former federal representative. He was elected to governor twice and raised more money than anyone else had ever raised. This man was not a fool. And to claim that he was a fool in the pleadings and during the course of the litigation, I think was disastrous for him and led in part to the 14-year sentence. If he had been conciliatory, we talked about, just briefly, about him helping out in a previous trial. After the first jury came back hung and there was a mistrial declared for the remaining counts, He could have taken that step and said, hey, look, Bill Cellini's still out there. You know what? Here's what I know about Bill Cellini. I will be more than happy to broker a deal and accept responsibility for my crimes, save you guys the time and energy of having to go back and do another retrial. I know that I'm going to go to jail on the line to the FBI. I've already been convicted of that. Let me see what I can do to help you get what you consider a bigger fish. Right, he didn't take that step.
I'm going to step away from you right now. Tom, stick around. We have Marianne Ahern back at the Dirksen Federal Building. We are still waiting to hear some reaction from the U.S. Attorney.
He was a bright, as Tom has said. I remember doing a live shot outside of a facility in downtown Chicago. He pulled over, got out, ran up to me, shook my hand. I'd never seen him in my life, knew my full name. He's bright.
You heard him. Definitely bright.
You heard today, the prosecutors were saying this was a guy who manipulated his testimony to the specific jurors to try and sway them. So this is just who he is, Tom. This is why he was such a powerful politician.
And yet Carol Marie made the point that he's sort of an idiot savant, because even within all of his brightness, he could make some clearly not wise choices.
But we all make not wise choices. That's why we have advisors to lead us on the right path.
But these are pretty way out there bad choices when you get convicted of 18 counts of federal
But they
offenses.
also seem to be his bad choices, not his advisors' bad choices. As the judge said, musings come at the end of the day. They don't come when you pick up the phone and begin to talk to others about them and attempt to get others. And it just absolutely baffles me in every wiretap case I've ever done is that people are shocked that they're being listened to. People are absolutely stunned that surveillance is going on.
It's been going on for about half a century, maybe longer.
And she's grabbing him to get inside quicker, which we see quite often. She's always pulling him. Let's get moving. Let's get moving. And again, she's had to do that.
It's your convicted governor, former governor of Illinois.
Who gets home and signs a copy of this.
A few autographs, and then has to go into that house, which must be difficult for Patty, and talk to those children who he had said today in front of Judge Zagel that he needs to admit to them, boy, I've made some mistakes.
Absolutely. And interestingly, they've been seeing all of this happen. They've been watching this for years. What position has their father taken to them, up to this point, would be curious. But now it's really come down to it. I wonder if he won't really have the really tough conversation until he steps out to go to jail.
I don't know. I've had clients that have waited until the last day to explain it to their kids to how kind of protect them and insulate them. I don't think that's possible in this situation.
They've got to be watching the coverage as he watched it.
They have to walk through cameras and crews when they make their way home.
We got to go to Phil Rogers, who sat in the court as he heard Rod Blagojevich apologize to the judge.
It has been quite a day. We have learned that a second successive governor has been sentenced to prison, this one for 14 years, Governor George Ryan for 6.5 years. So it's not a proud day here in the state of Illinois.
It's not. Yeah,
but it is one that we have covered extensively, and thank you for being here. Thank you, Tom Glasgow, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
A couple things I want to wrap up before we go back to regular programming, and we'll be right back on the air. I know you will be in less than 2 hours. Because of our coverage here of Rod Blagojevich, Days of Our Lives will air at 2:05 tonight. A lot of people probably wanted to catch that, so it will air later. And our coverage will continue. If you're just joining us, Rod Blagojevich sentenced to 14 years. Extensive reaction from both sides. From Rod Blagojevich, he addressed the media as well. So you'll be right back at it. And
we will. You need to go home and get to bed. This man's been on the air since 4 o'clock this morning, and we appreciate you hanging out here so we can
It was incredible to witness with both of you, to see what we saw and to hear those words come out of his mouth, and then watch the reaction as he arrived at home. Something I won't forget.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Not anytime soon.
No.
Not at all. Well, we thank you so much. Please join us at 4:30. Of course, we will have continuing coverage. We will have both sides of the issue. We'll get reaction from many political as well as folks on the street. We hope you join us then. And of course, you can get updates all day long at NBCChicago.com. We'll see you at 4:30.